Finally, the moment we've been waiting for, the car market is crashing in 2024, and we're seeing it all over the place. When you walk down the car lots, you see trucks overflowing, Rams, Fords, even looking at some of the Hondas, and all these other brands and manufacturers are now offering up all types of incentives just to get you, the buyer, in the door, and certainly to get you signed on the dotted line. Now, while a lot of these manufacturers aren't necessarily advertising it, I just go onto the classifieds and I'm able to weed out some of the real good deals. And I'm finding Dodge, for example, knocking Rams down as much as $5,000, $10,000, even $15,000 off of MSRP. That's right, below sticker, and we haven't even heard about that within this last 2 years. We're also seeing Ford knocking off on their F-150s. Prices are getting slashed, $5,000 to $10,000 a unit off of sticker. That's right. And also, even for example, vehicles like the Honda Ridgeline, a popular truck in the import space, and we're seeing a lot of great deals there too, where you can get as much as $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 off of the sticker off a brand new Honda Ridgeline. Even the Dodge Challengers and Chargers are definitely getting slashed, and we're seeing significant discounts coming and knocking off of those vehicles too, because they're just not selling. And while some of these manufacturers are quick to throw out these advertisements, many of them aren't. So if you're serious about buying, there's some great opportunities to come here. Now, of course, it's not all obvious in our face. A lot of the industry is definitely taking a back seat, and clearly karma is Sandy Beach, right? It's one of those situations there. The last year and a half, customers, consumers, car and truck and SUV buyers have been taking it. Guess what? The tables have turned. I've actually talked to a recent GM of a GMC dealer, and they said they were really worried. They were starting to build up inventory. They weren't getting the bites that they were hoping to get. And even vehicles that were popular previously, like the Corvettes, are now starting to settle out, and they're not selling like they were hoping they would. Even the Z06s are coming back down to stratosphere levels. The pickup trucks, absolutely. Sure, while they're selling, and a lot of people are going to say, no, they're not. They are, in fact, selling, yes, but not in the record amounts that they were hoping to. And clearly, they're having to incentivize the sale of a lot of these vehicles. That's the key here. Sure, you may not be selling massive amounts, and yes, they are selling, but they're actually having to offer big discounts. Now, you may not see that on the front end, but when you're getting serious about vehicles and you want to buy a new vehicle, you got to make sure you do your research. We'll talk about that, because now inventory's gone way up. We're up to about 2.61 million units available across the industry. We've actually finally hit a place where we've got about 80 days supply, which clearly means that there's a lot of vehicles out there for the picking. And so in general, we're about 870,000 units above the same time this year. That's right, about 50% higher than this time last year. And would you believe it, we're even down about 1%, down to about $47,142 from the same time last year. Now remember, that's listing price. Now we're also seeing a lot more incentives. So the listing price is one thing which is down, but if you actually get down to the actual art of negotiations and dealing, you're guaranteed going to find some amazing deals out there. You just have to be willing and able. And of course, a lot of these dealers and obviously the front end, the GMs are saying and telling their salespeople, don't let these people out of the door without getting them to sign on the dotted line. Offer up the incentives, give them the slash cuts on the price of this vehicle, throw in some extras. We've got to sell these vehicles. There's way too much inventory on the market today. And that's why in this point, this car, truck, and SUV market is starting to crash. And when we look over the industry average number of days supply of vehicles, that's right. If you stop production, turn the lights off on the manufacturing facilities, this is how many days we would be able to provide customers that are buying at the current buying rate. Of course, we see Toyota at a low number of 36 days. That's about a month's worth of inventory on the lot. But that doesn't say very much, because we know Toyota was basically built on demand, and of course, they're naturally going to have a lower inventory and a lower supply. Honda is also quite low, at roughly 48 days supply, but even Honda is recognizing, even with a smaller inventory, they're still offering up some incentives, because even they are not selling their vehicles, and everybody trusts Honda and the quality and the reputation that they make. And so while we're seeing the industry average of 80 days supply, and remember, the longer these vehicles sit on the lot, as in, for example, every month they have to make payments on these vehicles, and it's called the floor plan. The floor plan are essentially the credit costs that it costs these dealers to hold these vehicles on their lot. So every 30 days goes by, they're having to refresh, make payments, and of course their commitments to the bank is no different than yours or mine. It's just they're dealing on a much grander scale. And so if they have a vehicle that sits more than 30 days, they're starting to pay interest charges on that vehicle. They don't want that. They've got to get rid of it. So when you're dealing with vehicles that are 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. This is potentially catastrophic and can take some of these dealers down. That's a lot of carrying costs, and no general manager of any of these dealerships want to own the banks any of that type of debt. And so we're also seeing vehicles like Infiniti at about 123 days supply, Genesis about 126 days supply. Even with their reputation, people just aren't buying them like they were hoping. And on top of that, Rams are a whopping 153 days supply. In other words, we're talking about almost 5 months of supply. There's a lot of costs, floor plan costs going out from that dealership trying to pay to have all these vehicles parked on their lot. It's flexible for you as the buyer and me. If you're looking for a new Ram, you can buy all your shapes, all your sizes. You can get some great deals. And just remember, the more the day supply that you see on these lots, the more likeliness you're going to get a serious deal on some of these vehicles. So while you might walk into the dealership, and I did some of this recently, I strolled around a recent Dodge dealership and I went into the showroom. They have these really exaggerated price tags on their windows. The reality is you can guaranteed get some major price slashes off some of those vehicles. You just have to be prepared. Make sure you got your credit in order firsthand. Definitely, I would recommend before you ask if their credit can cover you, maybe check with your own bank to understand how much you can borrow, how much your interest rates, and have all that prepared in advance. So when you sit down with these guys, then you're ready to make the deal. And you know exactly how much you can offer, how much you can pay, and how much you're willing to tolerate and stomach. But there's some other car brands that carry even much more and worse floor plan costs, and some of those have a much higher day supply, like Lincoln, Chrysler, and Dodge. Of course, all part of the Stellantis group. There's some Stellantis products, which we already spoke of. They're not doing so well. They've scaled up. And so that's literally, if you were to turn the taps off today, on a 5-month supply, you can run that out for the next half a year. But the thing is, they're not turning off the day supply. They're actually still manufacturing these vehicles, trying to stay ahead of the game. For whatever reason, they can't even sell what they've got. And actually, when I browse the classifieds, which I just showed you, I'm able to see lots of 2023 vehicles that are brand new that are marked down, slashed aggressively. Yeah, you can get some great deals on 23s, but there are some huge incentives, not just on 23s, but some 24s. Now, we know, we've talked about this, a lot of the Rams, they've price hiked and some of their MSRPs are going up. They'll rethink about that because people are not buying. People are living in tents now or under bridges. People don't have the money. They can barely afford to live and eat a loaf of bread. Forget about buying a luxury item like McDonald's. A lot of these people, folks in general, the middle class, like you and I, we just can't afford a $100,000 pickup truck. It just doesn't make sense. And what we're looking at is Super Duty here, and it's listed at $107,000. So we know what the listing price has been down, but what about the actual transaction prices? Yeah, they're down too. About 3% down from December of 2023. Right, flip the calendar a month or two later, and all of a sudden we're down already 3% on average, and about 4% from a year ago. So clearly we're on the decline. This may be the time to strike while the iron's hot, because the market is starting to crash. We're seeing mass amounts of inventory. The shortages aren't there anymore. There's lots of choices out there. And clearly these dealers are sitting on a lot of overhead and they just don't want to do that. So now this might be time, if you've been serious about buying a new vehicle, car, truck, or SUV, this may be the time to start shopping. Now, with all of this considered, try to stay away from the really popular hot topic vehicles. Of course, you know, the Toyota Grand Highlander is one of those vehicles that has one of the lowest supplies. So if you're thinking you're going to go in there and get 10 grand off one of those, you might think again. Also, we're talking about the Ford Maverick. We know that's a popular truck, and it's going to be hard to get a great deal on those because there is a shortage. They are selling like hotcakes, and Ford doesn't seem to be too motivated to start price slashing those vehicles. But stay away from those hottest, latest, greatest vehicles, and you could find yourself with a major windfall, with some huge incentives, some major price cuts off of sticker price. I was even shopping recently for an Alfa Romeo Stelvio. Yes, the SUV. And I saw a boatload of 2023 model years that were literally about 10 or 15 grand less than the brand new 24 model years, which of course are already starting to be incentivized because people aren't buying them. They're a riskier venture, they're a high cost luxury vehicle, and people, again, as I've said, don't have the money, they don't have the means. High interest rates are also forcing people to make some hard decisions. Refinancing their mortgages on their homes are a much higher priority than buying their new vehicle. As well, a lot of corporate dissolution is actually sending a lot of these large businesses out of business or scaling down. We hear about the tech market and industry and some of these other areas, the energy sectors, and they're shriveling down. They're laying off hundreds and if not thousands of employees. So now with that, you have an offset space. You have more people looking for work and a lot less people even caring about buying a new vehicle, let alone at high interest rates at 8.9, 9.9, 12.9, or even subprime lenders at 22, 23%. Nobody can afford that. Nobody wants that because they know that depreciation rates are becoming more standard again. And it is just now time to turn the tables. These dealers are getting nervous. I even talked to a general manager over at a Honda dealership. And even though Honda is one of the best vehicles in terms of lowest carrying costs because they don't have as much inventory or day supply, there's still this sort of nervous feeling, this feeling of they've got to hustle, they've got to push because they're not getting as much interest and as much people and foot traffic into the dealerships. It's becoming much more challenging. So clearly, all the indications are there that this is the time that 2024 in the first quarter that the market is starting to crash. And so it's about time, like they say, karma is a beach. And with all of that said, be sure to check out that video, a very popular one that I talked about exactly recently, how Stellantis is in a dire straits. And of course, their Jeep and Ram products are not selling and how they're responding to that market change. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.